Let's have some fun.
And we're back. Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. It's U.S. Open week. It's time to make some money. And I take you back live to LA Country Club. Our guys on site this week, you know him as Keith Stewart at Read the Line. He just continues to be on a heater. My man, you excited for the 123rd playing of the United States Open? How you doing?
I am so excited for this thing. I mean, I can't. I played here. I had the fortunate opportunity to play here back in December of 2019. And from that moment, I was like just counting down the days and to be here on site, to cover this thing for everybody and do what we do every Tuesday. Man, I'm so excited for this thing. I don't have the words.
See, I don't think you're like fully excited yet. I mean, like not fully amped up yet. My audience, you're probably like, it's Tuesday. You know, we got a couple days. But you can't get fully excited and fully in tune to the United States Open until you hear the horns. Now, if this doesn't get you excited, nothing will.
Let's go. Come on.
This doesn't get you excited, nothing will, folks. This week, not about money this week. Not about power.
Can we pan out like a drone of like flapping flags in the breeze, overlooking the grounds?
This takes me back to my
Century City over to the Playboy Mansion, across the Barranca. I said it.
The Barranca.
Bingo board. That's the first time. Yeah.
This takes me back to my youth. I'm on the putting green. I'm 10 years old. At a 6-footer.
I mean, I have to be somewhat reserved because I'm in the media center, but I am so pumped for this championship. It is, you know, and as a PGA professional, like I know I should maybe be a little more fired up for the PGA championship. There have been other years, like last year Southern Hills, I was very much in it. But man, the USGA has been on like a read the line heater with venues lately. I mean, you look at where we're going right now, or last year's a country club, amazing. Where we are right now, first time ever, right? You know,
I love it.
Next year, Pinehurst.
Next year's Pinehurst. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go from here to Pinehurst, Oakmont, Shinnecock, Pebble.
Wow.
Wingfoot, Pinehurst. Yeah, I mean, this is.
But see, let me just interject for a second. Okay, those horns,
go.
I've got, you know, I've listened to that song probably, I don't know, half dozen times already in the studio here. I've been kind of pumping it. People out in the hallway are like, what the hell's going on in there? And so, you know, I've got goosebumps, my hair's standing up because it takes me back to my childhood. NBC, you know, they just absolutely burnt that into your brain, right? And then NBC lost the US Open and now it's back. And so when I hear this, it takes me back to my childhood. It takes me back to the old United States Open when, in my mind, when I was young, it was the U.S. Open #1. It was U.S. Open #1, and then it was the Masters, maybe then Open Championship 2 and 2B, and then the PGA. And then the U.S. Open and the USGA, they lost their way. They lost their way. And the United States Open struggled. And so I feel like they've gotten their identity back. NBC's back in charge, right? And just one more time here before we get this thing started. I mean, just one more time before we get this started, because I got to finish my story.
All right.
That 6-footer when I was 12 years old. Pinehurst #1, we call it in Northern Idaho. 6-footer to win the United States Open.
Now tell me, give me a child.
I missed it.
Come on.
I missed it.
Give me a childhood memory that this song evokes. Give me one of the U.S. Opens where you were like, holy moly.
I mean, Tiger, man. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, it's just
But Tiger Pebble, Tiger Beth Page,
Tiger on one leg and Rocco. Tiger on one leg with Rocco. I mean,
expect anything different?
It just, it's just as good as it gets. I mean, that putt bouncing on the, and it gets the bottom.
When he gives you when he gets up and he's like,
it's just so good. So good.
It's amazing.
Tiger at Pebble. Mickelson with the driver on the 72nd hole, hitting it.
I'm such an idiot.
Crazy. Justin Rose Marion was good too. I enjoyed that one. Just stripes it down the 72nd hole. That hole was a beast. That 18th.
One of the most iconic.
I think of Payne Stewart.
Oh God! How about one of the most iconic shots of all time in the U.S. Open? 71st hole. Gary Woodland has to lob wedge it off the green, right? And everyone's looking at that, and they had that camera right on the head, and it's just scuffed that. Oh my God! So good, so good.
It is
so
good. It is good. It is good.
DJ with the 72nd hole at Oakmont when he hit that, probably like a 7-iron in there to like 3 feet. Oh golly.
Well, I'll never forget. I'll never forget. So Chambers Bay is close to my heart, being up in Seattle, and
sure.
And that course didn't U.S. Open. That was kind of when they were struggling a little bit, USGA. But that drive that DJ hit on 18 on Sunday was one of the best drives I've ever seen in my entire life, ever. I mean, where he hit that ball, and then he 3-putts. Yeah, I mean, that was crazy.
What, he hit 5-iron in or 6-iron in or something? Yeah.
I've played Chambers a few times, and that drive was ridiculous at that moment where he hit that, and then he 3-putts and Spieth wins.
Case in point to you saying they lost their way. Remember they changed the par on that hole during that tournament? Remember it was a par 4 one day, it was a par 5 on different days. They did. I mean, Fox was there. They had like the Fox tracker on the ball. It's.
But you gotta go back. We'll finish with this. I mean, look, Webb Simpson, U.S. Open, with that guy running in the backdrop, and Bob Costas' face. My God, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard watching a golf tournament in my entire life, ever.
That brings me full circle because Mike Davis took that guy out like they took out Adam Hadwin on Sunday, man. That guy was unbelievable. That's such an iconic memory. 2012, right? Olympic. Oh yeah.
2012 Olympic Club, right?
Yeah, Olympic Club for sure. Yeah.
And on that note, we spin it forward. Right. Here we are. LA. We're in LA, baby. LA Country Club. And look, I've been listening to some podcasts, talking to some people. You're on site, so I've got some questions teed up for you. I just want to start with the overall. I just want to start with the overall length and get your thoughts on the length because, I see Gordon Sargent hitting 3-iron on social media from 290 on a par 3, right? Like, all right, that's probably it's 290, but it's downhill, right? I'm hearing that there's going to be some big par 3s. I'm hearing par 4s 500 plus. I mean, what are we looking at lengthwise? Because I know there's some up and down, some elevation changes. How long is this golf course going to play, do you think?
Overall, I think it'll play shorter than Oak Hill did. Okay. Honestly, both par 70s, both 7,400 yards. Part of that has to do with the fact that here you can just rip driver, and you're going to have to because of certain spots, the elevation changes are really going to challenge these guys. But when you look at that final stretch, 16, 17, 18, 16 is that really brutal par 4, but it's straight downhill. It's coming down the same hill that they're playing 11 at, which is 290. Now, the way that 290 is designed, there is a runway that comes into the green that starts at about 230. So when those guys are hitting 6-irons and 5-irons down about 30 feet in elevation into this kind of like little collection area that's going to shoot it into the green. If a guy flies it onto the green there this week, I mean, this place is going to play firm. We got a ton of rain back in January in LA, but they haven't seen measurable rain since mid-May.
Wow.
Now it's been overcast and we're coastal, but this place is going to have some bounce to it by the weekend. There's no doubt about it. And so a bigger concern for me with the length is how you're going to approach shots from Bermuda grass rough, which we haven't seen since 2014 Pinehurst #2. So it's been a while since we played a major championship with this kind of rough, the Brillo pad, ball sinks to the bottom. And then they've got some other types of grasses. But to go back to your point about the length, it's a little bit of hyperbole, right? If you're driving the ball over 300 yards and the fairway has a little bounce to it, the bigger challenge is going to be handling the terrain and the elevation changes. And it's going to be like Augusta National in a lot of ways, or Southern Hills, where you're climbing up and down these hills all the time. And the fairways, like Olympic Club back in 2012, and the reverse cant fairways. So there's a couple fairways like number 5, number 13, where number 3 especially, where the fairway really slopes from one side to the other. And if you're not hitting that ball into the slope and you're hitting it with the slope, you will not be able to control it. It's similar to wind, but the ground game is really going to play a part here. Lengthwise, everybody wants to talk about the length, which is interesting for me when the USGA says they want to make things longer, but they want to roll the ball back. Kind of an interesting conundrum there, but we could talk about that like some Tuesday in October for about 6 hours.
No,
but
that's a good
overall,
point.
overall, I mean, what major championship doesn't favor power at this point, right? So power, is a key, but I think overall these guys are going to be hitting a lot more drivers, and they're going to be catching a lot more downhills than you think, and you're going to see it in the clubs that they hit in. And I'm not too hung up on length this week as much as I am hung up on the ground game.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think you said a lot there to kind of digest the length. It sounds like, obviously guys are going to be hitting driver, but it does sound like there's a little more room perhaps than one might think to US Open. Now it's going to, the fairways are going to bounce, and that's going to make the fairway effectively play a little bit smaller. But they're going to send it off the tee. It sounds like the slope, the tilt, it really runs up to the greens as well. I've heard a couple players talk about, the greens are fast, but they're not like crazy fast because there's a lot of tilt and movement to these greens. So to me, that's something to point out here as well from a putting standpoint. We're going to be seeing some greens, it sounds like, with a fair amount of break.
Well, there's these interesting outcroppings. So if you just look at the square footage of the greens, they're like 3 times the size of what we dealt with last year at the country club. But the thing is that they have these small little parcels of land that come out, and they're kind of like little fingers and peninsulas, like in between some of these bunkers. Like the 3rd hole comes to mind, and the 15th hole, the par 3, that little front section that they made 78 yards in the Walker Cup, right? And they're going to play it there one day this week in one of the 4 rounds. They're going to make that like an 80-yard shot, and there's nowhere to land it. So you're going to see these guys have to hit towards safe zones on these greens. So for me, St. Andrews, lag putting, Augusta National, lag putting, and they call it approach putting in a lot of different websites. Guys that can really remove some stress over 72 holes with their approach putting are guys that I'm really interested in this week, because I think overall that's going to be one of the top 3 tests when we get into this, right? So if we have a with a little whiteboard to the side here, a little graphic comes up. If there's 3 things that I'm really keying on that I think is going to allow people to contend, and approach putting is definitely one of them.
Okay. So we need some length. All right, we need some length off the tee. For the most part. I mean, I think that's proven out in most majors, US Open. We know approach game. Look, you're going to have your approach game, right? And you're probably going to have that mid iron, long iron into some greens more so than we've seen in the past. It looks like you're not going to be able to fake it short game wise. The rough is pretty juicy, it looks like. Patchy, I've heard that word a little bit, but not patchy from the standpoint that there's patches of no rough. There's rough everywhere. It's just whether it's 5 inches versus 3, and the ball is going to sit down. I even heard St. Augustine grass is on this golf course. It's just fascinating to me that the turf conditions, Bermuda, tees, and fairways, bent grass green, and there's St. Augustine. I mean, it's like, my gosh, are we playing in Florida? I mean, what is the deal? Like, this is like Florida wrapped up in a California golf course. So like those are some things that we're seeing from the United States Open. The other thing is, and you were talking about it before we came on air, when you look at the odds and how far we're going to go down the board, share with the audience the last 10 years and how that's played out.
8 of the last 10 winners have been under plus 3,000. So just right there, that you're looking at a very short board of people that can contend. I always go back to Brooks at Harding Park. There's 20 guys who could win this thing, and 10 of them won't play well, so I got to beat 9 other guys, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, we'll have some fun as we go down the board, but those are mostly going to be placements, or they might be fantasy plays, or they might be head-to-head matchups, or live in-play bets. At the end of the day, I have a tough time wrapping my head around anybody over plus 5,000, plus 6,000 pulling this thing off. Now, there's some great players there, but at the end of the day, is Corey Connors going to win this thing?
Yeah. And
the answer is probably not. When you tell me there are all these other guys at the front of the pack, and I just, it's 8 of the last 10, short of 30-1. 8 of the last 10. Let that sink in.
Yep.
And all the compelling storylines that everyone hears, all the different podcasts they listen to, if you were searching for long odds in this thing, then you might want to pair that with the Denver Nuggets parade props or something, because you're just not going to get it probably out of the winner of this thing.
Well, that being said, Corey Connors,
there's a lot of fun things to talk about.
There is, and just real quick on Connors. I mean, we've seen Corey Connors with the game. He's won twice on tour, Valero Texas Open. We saw him make a run there at the PGA, and then he got to Sunday and he didn't want the smoke. I mean, he went backwards, right? And so, there's a lot of guys that are they're building their way up to that moment, and then that moment hits, and he wasn't ready yet. And so, maybe he is. This is a different track here I think we're dealing with. But from tee to green, we've seen it play out with Corey Connors. But on that note, let's get into the board. The big 3. There's a new big 3, by the way. I'm coining that right now. Ooh. A new big 3.
All right.
There's Scotty Scheffler, of course. Speaking of tee to green, I don't think there's anyone better in the world. There's Jon Rahm, of course. He's won a U.S. Open before. And then there's Brooks Koepka. It's time. Brooks Koepka's got to move into the big 3. I mean, you're second at the Masters. You win the PGA. You've got 5 major championships. No one's been better in major championships over a period of time here than Brooks Koepka. So we're trying to find an angle on those 3 guys. I'll start. I think Scheffler's putter is gonna. I think he's cleaned it up. I talked about it. I talked about some of the things that I thought were happening. The ball was coming out of the heel a little bit. I think he's cleaned it up. I think Scotty Scheffler. I mean, incredible tee to green. We know that.
Sure.
The dude's gonna bomb it off the tee. His iron game is insane. His short game is ridiculous. And it's just the putter that's holding him back. And we know that. We've talked about it, and we've exhausted that. At some point, he's too good of a player. He's had great moments putting. I think he did hit the bottom there with the putter. I think they had to rework some things, rewire some things. And I expect to see a much improved Scotty Scheffler putter. And you know how it works with these guys, man. You see a couple go in, and then off you go. And so for me, in the big 3, as good as he is tee to green, the putter now, he's got his head above water. I'll take Scheffler over Brooks narrowly.
So I'm going to go Brooks there, right?
Okay.
So does that mean that Rahm just being
No, the way this has gone, it means Brooks is going to win.
Rahm's off our
because you picked him. The way this has been going over the last couple months.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's rewind the tape for a second. You touched on them all, but I'm going to give out all 3, so I'm not leaving like a reality show Fox commercial break hanging. People hanging on, right? Approach putting, short game, which includes sand, right? We've got, 36 greenside bunkers that are all sorts of wacky with eyebrows. You're going to hear a lot about eyebrows on bunkers, right? There's this crazy Brillo grass mix that they made between Bermuda and fescue. It's a total mess, and it looks like
Crazy.
the eyebrow above a bunker, right? If the ball gets in there and you're not Cam Smith, you're not getting it out, or David Blaine. I mean, you have to be a magician to figure these things out. And then the third thing is long iron play. Right? 44% of these approach shots are coming in from over 200 yards, and we've already established the long par threes. So those are my three things. Scotty checks 2 boxes. Brooks checks all 3. Why does Brooks check all 3? If you look at his scrambling on LIV, we already know what he did in the majors. But in his last 4 starts on LIV, he's finished top 7 in scrambling. Right? We can at least see how he gets up and down. Right? I know there aren't high-level stats there or anything, but you could at least see that Brooks, and you could tell me that there's only 8 good players on LIV, and that's fine. But those are still 8 really good players, and he's up at the top of the board there in scrambling. And that's one of those areas that a lot of people don't touch upon. It worries me the sand with Scotty, and it worries me the approach putting and the short putts. So everything else with Scotty, he should win the thing by 5. If he goes flat on putting like he did at the Players, right? Remember, his strokes gained putting at the Players was 0.1, and he won by 5. Positive 0.1, and he won by 5, right? Scotty will boat race the field. This place couldn't be better suited for his ball striking game. He's long. He's accurate. He can work the ball both ways. He's good at scoring clubs. He's awesome with long iron acumen, everything, right? Yep. But the bunker numbers aren't there, and the putting's not there.
He's not. Well, he's not going to be in the bunker. Scotty, he that's how good he hits it. So he hits it on the ground. He only lost 8.5 stroke. He only lost 8.5 strokes gained putting at the Memorial and finished 3rd. He only lost 4.6 putting at the Charles Schwab and finished 3rd. I mean, it's just
both times one shot out of a playoff.
It's ridiculous how good he is tee to green. Ridiculous. Not even close. No one's even close. And
the bait at Memorial was 28 strokes.
Jeez.
28.
So you're telling me, Scheffler, that you can't get this thing coming out of the center of the face, improve the approach putting, and make a few more 10-footer. No, I think you're going to see an improvement here. I do. I think there had to be some rewiring. I think it's happened. And sometimes when you know what happens? You know what happens in putting when you rewire and you get that change, and all of a sudden it's like there's no history and it feels all new. Usually it's pretty good out of the gate, right? We've seen it time and time again. We saw it with Morikawa. We saw it with Luke List. We've seen it over and over again. And then it comes back to the mean. And I've seen Scotty. He's had positive. When he won Phoenix, he had positive 4.2. Early he's had positive 2s in those. So, but if the safer bet and who is hitting certainly more on all cylinders and checking those boxes, Brooks. Look, I mean, you can't argue Brooks in major championships. The guy is an absolute horse. I want to ask you this now, because I bumped Rory out of the big 3, and it's deserving. Rory didn't take any press conferences today at the U.S. Open. That made me happy. I think if I'm Rory, I'm taking a step away from the mic. If I'm any player for that matter, I'm taking a step away from the mic, and they ask me about the merge. Like, I don't know. Go ask them. I mean, if I'm Rory, I don't want to be ran out there again for the PGA Tour and representing the things that they're out there at the time preaching. So you ask the management. Don't ask me anymore. I'm here to play golf. I like that with Rory. But
Rory looked focused this morning. He was out with Faxon on the putting green.
On the golf course, though, stay with me. Firm and fast. Rory, firm and fast. I don't know. We're looking at a single digit winner here, probably 4, 5, 6 under,
6 to 8. Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't scream Rory, does it? Those two things. He's out there with swing devices. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. He's got the ball. He's got the pros. I mean, it's like, what in the hell? I mean, Rory, I don't know. Like I like the things that he did moving away from the mic, but I don't. Is LACC, and when I'm firm and fast, single digits, is that Rory McIlroy?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the firm and fast discussion, because I have attached my trailer to this Ford F-150. I believe that this place is going to have some bounce to it. And as a result, it's going to play like places that we've seen over the past few years, like St. Andrews last year, like 2018 Shinnecock. Memorial a couple weeks ago was super. I mean, I was out there, it was like plywood. It was like an airport runway. So if you go back through I went through about 10 of those events, and the top 10 players in this field, right, that really ring, that are the type of guys that could win this championship, firm, fast conditions. Here's your top 10. All right. Tied for 10th, you've got Burns, DJ, and Brooks.
Burns, DJ, and
Tied
Brooks.
For, all right. Tied for 8th, Bryson and Hovland. 7th, Homa. 6th, Fleetwood. Fleetwood's got to pay attention to. He's one of the guys that could do a Wed Simpson or Gary Woodland for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
He definitely probably learned some things about himself last weekend, right? Now, number 5, Denny McCarthy. Number 4, Hollywood.
Love my boy
Hideki.
Denny.
Oh, hey, you got to pay attention. There's another list I made, U.S. Open scoring averages, right? Denny's on that list.
Hey, Denny can play tough courses.
He's top 10. Short game matters. Short game on tough course. If you know this as well as anybody. If you're going to a golf course to play a tournament and no one's seen the venue, if it's a blank slate, and with all due respect to the 2017 Walker Cup and course records and the Pac-12 championship, this is a new venue for everyone. Yep. Short game is the ultimate differentiator, right? Short game and putting are the ultimate differentiator. That's going to separate the field, right? Hollywood Hideki, he's 4th. Firm conditions again. Xander's next, right? Rahm 2, Rory 1. There you go. You want an argument for Rory, right? You want an argument for Rory, right? Now, he may not win at all those places, but you want an argument for Rory when it's firm and fast. He was 3rd at St. Andrews last year, had the lead going to the, I mean, there's all sorts of opportunity there. Now that those are just scoring averages, right? Just putting it out there.
His
out
driver
there into the ethos.
His driver is humming right now. There's no question about that. His driver is humming. His irons, inconsistent. For the
long
life of me,
wedges
irons
are weird.
Yeah, wedges, 9-iron, weird. And so I've been doing some digging on Rory and what he's doing right now in his swing. And
give it to me.
I was on with the Paulsons Inside the Ropes, and we were talking about what do you think Rory should do with his wedges. And I was like, look, he hits that trap draw. He likes to fly it at trap draw. The face turns down, and he pulls it. And you can't be pulling your wedges. Like, that's a huge no-no for a professional golfer because it's left, it's long, and he hits that shot so many times. Now, when he can let it out and throw it up in the air, the driver and the long irons, he checks those boxes, no question. His putter looked better the last time we saw him, no question about it. Last week at the Canadian Open, he was positive 3.6. But it looks like to me, he's out there with these swing devices now, which is kind of interesting. I mean, to see Rory McIlroy out there, he's got the ball in between his chest. He's pinching his elbows and he's trying to get his left arm more upright. Then he's got the Pro Sender on his right hand, and he's like that commercial with like PGA Tour like Superstore or something. Yeah, and he's got the Pro Sender and trying to get more extension in the right wrist to point the club more left, which I like. I think those are the right things for Rory to be doing, to get things more out in front of him, and then he can control that face better. And it probably feels a little more like a fade. So to me, it's like, I don't think he should be hitting these trap draws. I think he should be throwing it up in the air a little bit more. It feels like a fade with these wedges to avoid de-lofting that face and turning it down. So anyway, I think that's what he's working on. But it's just interesting to see a player like Rory McIlroy out there with multiple swing devices and hitting shots. But we'll have to wait and see. Look, I mean, we know Rory's probably going to be there. I mean, he's just the guy has been cruising around with his B game for the most part. And he finishes in the top 10. So I still believe that when it's all cylinders, Rory is the best player. I believe that. All cylinders, all systems go, Rory McIlroy, must-watch TV, best player in the world. I just don't think we're close to that right now from an instinctive standpoint with the swing and the putting still just scares the daylights out of me. I know we saw some putts go in, but he still just scares the daylights out of me with the putting. All right, so here's your weekly question. You ready? Your weekly question.
All right.
I got to make you pick between the boys, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. You know, there they are, the brothers. There they are. Now, just real quick here on Cantlay. Can I just say real quick on Cantlay? You know, these Cali kids, Max Homa, right? We got Max Homa's from Cali and Xander's from Cali, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Cantlay's from Cali. Look at Cantlay. No one ever pays attention to Cantlay. Cantlay went to where'd Cantlay go? He went to UCLA. Cantlay went to UCLA.
That's the parking lot for this event. It's right here. Oh yeah.
Come on. People just disrespecting Cantlay. He's Cali kids, right? I know Max Homa has a course record. Max Homa has a course record at LACC, and Max is Cali. You know, he's cool, he's fresh. But Cantlay, come on, man. Is there anybody hitting their driver better than Cantlay right now other than Rory?
Well, you know, you can rewind the tape. I can have the court reporter read it back to you. But the fact of the matter is that I was all over Cantlay because of the driver going into Oak Hill. And the first day he was in the bottom 2% of off the tee. He was terrible. And that was not a physical problem. I got to choose between the two. I'm going to go Xander.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm basing that on the fact that if I mentioned that on the list when I was talking about the consequences of the guys in the field scoring averages in U.S. Opens. Number one guy, lowest scoring average, 6 U.S. Opens, Xander is number one.
Okay.
Cantlay's not in the top 15 in scoring average. So just based upon that, we're putting money on this. This is not, we're not betting butterflies here. Okay. We're putting money on this thing. And if that's the case, and where you're going to have come up with some sort of California narrative and native to the state and everything, I got to go. I believe that Xander has more positive experience in the U.S. Open than Cantlay, and both their games fit. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to go Xander in that the debate over those two.
I agree. I've circled Xander again. He's 18-1. I'm going to go down that path again. There's no weakness with Xander Schauffele. We know his game's built for the U.S. Open. The question becomes with Xander Schauffele is when the situation hits down the stretch, what are you going to do? Are you ready to win the United States Open? Are you? You know, that's what it comes down to. Xander, because he's going to be there. You know that. I mean, Xander's always there. Always there down the stretch of the U.S. Open. But situationally, down the stretch, Xander, you have a little dog in you. Are you ready to win the United States Open? I don't know. The jury's out here on that. I don't know.
I don't know. You know what? Here's the thing. We do this week in and week out. And I just want to throw out a quick disclaimer. Xander is a world-class player, top 10 player in the world.
Yeah.
But our job is to split hairs here, folks, right? So bear with us. At the end of the day, the grit, the resolve, the willingness to accept those horns playing in your ears for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Right? Some people have that attention span and some don't. And until you prove us otherwise, we are investing capital funds here. Right. And they have got to go. They got to go in startups that we believe in will succeed and have shown a return. I mean, at the end of the day, Brooks Koepka's got 5.
Oh, it's amazing.
Xander's got 0. Cantlay's got 0. And don't talk to me about, Xander and his weekend at the PGA and Cantlay and his backdoor top 10s. And I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be in the heat. Just like we were talking about Corey Connors earlier. Corey Connors was in the heat. I give him all the credit in the world. And I'm sure he learned a lot about his game and contending in majors up there at Oak Hill. We saw it live, the fairway bunker on 16 on Saturday, whatever it was. But we've seen it a lot of times with Xander. He's got that knowledge. Patrick has that knowledge. And who was hotter coming into last year's Open Championship than Xander? He'd won like 3 times in 5 weeks and the Pro-Am. over in Ireland. JP
Yeah.
McManus's pro-am. Xander was super hot.
Yeah, back to back.
And he
Scottish.
did not.
Yep.
Yeah, Scottish on his
Scottish,
you know.
yeah, that was a great field. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have a tough time. We're here to pick winners.
I do too.
Xander, you want to pick him in a pool? You want to have him make the – I mean, he has the cuts record right now. I mean, it's still like 120 behind Tiger, but he has the cuts record on tour. I think it's right around the mid-20s, 25, 26. So the guy's awesome. But winning the U.S. Open –
But to clarify, I made you pick between Cantlay and Xander. And so you did. And so I agree, but neither one of us are betting. In fact, we're going to go down the board. And I would take Hovland over Xander down the stretch. I mean, there's no question. I think Hovland has it in him down the stretch to win one of these things. We've seen now the improvement in the short game. I really spent a lot of time on that with his new coach. Spent a lot of time going back and forth with him on the changes. Pretty significant changes too. I'm going to talk more about it on the podcast. I've got some really good videos to show. But Memorial champ. I mean, we know the guy is going to live from the fairway. We know the guy's iron game is ridiculous. He can throw it up in the air, long irons. How does he check out on the approach putting for you? And is Victor Hovland a guy you're interested in?
I'm very interested in Victor Hovland. I think in an expanded major championship betting card, outright card, he's my fifth guy in, and he's definitely he checks that range of everyone against him in that range. So you're talking Cantlay, Xander, everyone there in the high teens and early 20s.
I think we would both take Hovland. Yeah, I agree.
Yes, Hovland's my guy. And for all the reasons we've outlined at the Memorial and everything else, we can move down the board. But if you're not taking Victor, at least top 10, and if you want to bet him, you know, I hate people that complain, his odds should be higher. Well, no, they shouldn't, because he's on a super heater. 3 straight top 10s in majors on 3 different golf courses. He can handle it all. And then he just proved it out at a golf course that was almost unplayable come Sunday. And he played the 3 hardest holes like strokes gained beta against the field, like 5 better.
Yeah.
On 16, 17, and 18. So it's like, come on, what are we talking about? That's how you split hairs right there. You take the 3 hardest holes on the golf course and you play them 5 better than the field, and you're going to have a chance to win. And then when he had a chance to win, he put the ball in the fairway, and we saw what happened to your boy Denny. Now, hey, Denny played tremendous, and he had a learning experience.
He did.
And he's definitely somebody I would talk about here, but for the range we're in, Hovland, there you go. We can move on.
And for the record, last week, Keith he bet Hovland and I bet Denny. So that's still kind of a little trying to get over that. But anyway, now we go from 18 into the 30s. And we go big jump right now. Cameron Smith, 30. Hatton, 30. Spieth, 30. DJ, 35. Max Homa, Calikid, 35. Morikawa, Calikid, 35. Fitzpatrick, 35. All right, so I just gave you a nice wide range of players for you to go where you'd like. Floor is yours.
Somebody asked me about Hatton yesterday.
Boy.
I said, you know what? Hatton, I've been riding the Hatton bus forever, but I'm not sure it's ever going to get to its destination. So if you're getting on the Hatton bus and it's not getting it done at the Memorial, or it's not getting it done at the RBC Canadian Open last week, I think what I figured out is that Hatton's on the bus, but guys like Brooks are driving it, right? At the end of the day, the Hattons of the world in that range, Morikawa back spasms scares me. Also, the amount of short game you need around this place scares me.
Yeah.
He's never shown the improvement that Victor has.
Nope.
The putting scares me. In that range, there's really only one name that's going to make it on my card, and it's the flow. It's Mr. Hollywood. It's got to be definitely Cam Smith. You know,
really? That surprises me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. That surprises me.
Oh yeah. I if you give me, I'll go on the record. If you give me single bullet in this, one bet, Cam Smith, done. End the pod. It's over. Right? I mean, I'm telling you, what he's been doing lately, just no one pays attention. It goes back to my Hideki point. When the media, with the language barrier, they don't pay attention to him and how good he is, right? People How is it that Cam Smith had a top 10 at Oak Hill on a golf course where he lost 3.5 off the tee, and it didn't suit his game at all? Did not suit his game at all. And he didn't have a backdoor. He fought his way and clawed his way into a T9. Right? I mean, he showed up at the Masters and he admitted he hadn't been doing any work. But since that time, what do we have here? Last 5 starts: 3rd, 7th, 2nd, 9th at the PGA, 9th in DC. Right? He's your hometown guy there. You know he cares. You know he gives away that appearance, that air of aloofness or whatever. But that guy is a great player. And this golf course, can we go with the boxes, right? He's a little weak. Does
he have enough room off the tee, though? He can hit foul balls. Can he do enough off the tee?
If he could get in the top 9 at Oak Hill, right, where the rough was, it's crazy harder than here, right? Then he could definitely contend in the top 3 here with his short game.
All right.
Trust me, the guys that are contending are going to end up in a bunker or these eyebrows or the Barranca. And who can get you out of there? There's only 2 guys I can think of that are magicians that are perfectly suited for this place with a wedge in hand.
They're right next to each other.
Just mentioned one of them, and you know who the other one is, right? If one of those 2 guys are not on your card, then I don't know. Yeah. I won't give up because I truly enjoy my Tuesdays with you, but I have to start to question some of our listeners' sanity at some point.
Well,
the short game around. I played this place. You need a short game. You have got to have a short game. At some point, it's going to show up. And knowing the golf gods, it's going to show up at the absolute worst possible time. With the one thing for Scotty, it'll be the bunker, right? It's going to show up.
Yep.
And you can't tell me that the driving is going to be that hard that it's going to hold him back more so than it did at Oak Hill, and he came in 9th. So in that range, Cam Smith,
last 5 U.S. Opens.
Action.
Last 5 U.S. Opens. Miscut, T38, T72, miscut. Cam Smith. I'm just pushing back on it. It's interesting. I was not expecting you to go. I was not expecting you to go Cam Smith. I thought you would go Jordan Spieth. I like Jordan here.
Spieth.
I think you make a good point. You got to go one of the 2 because they are magic with the bunkers and the greens around the greens. Spieth's driver is very encouraging right now. What we're seeing there, now we're back to just some inconsistency with the putter. Can he figure that out?
Ooh, it's not as bad as you think.
Okay,
it's been a lot better lately. And here's the thing about Spieth. You want to go down the rabbit hole on Spieth? I love it. Right? His last 7 starts, he's had 4 of them. He's gained double-digit strokes gained total. So that's included the putter. 4 of them, double digits. He hasn't been on a stretch like that since 2015, which he won 2 majors and contended in all 4, right?
Yeah.
And the 3 events where he didn't play well in the last 7 were the ones where the wrist was quote unquote a problem.
Yeah.
But a fourth at Memorial on that golf course, and I watched him. The sniff test is there for me. I watched him on the range. He's back in full jabber mode. Michael, what are we going to do? And the magician, the rabbit's coming out of the hat. So
I'm in on Spieth.
I could get in on Spieth at any number.
I'm in on Spieth. I'm not there with Smith. I'm not there with Hatton. Hatton last 3 U.S. Opens, T56, miscut. I mean, Hatton, does he have the temperament to have the patience to the end to win this thing? I don't know. I mean, it's funny. He gets, he's a highlight reel, but I'm not sure Terrell Hatton's the guy for a U.S. Open. Fitzpatrick, the defending champ. We've kind of skipped over Homa. A lot of people thinking, well, what about Homa? He's got the course record here. Cali kid. I don't know. I think Homa has not contended in majors. And so obviously it's the next step for him. He's a great player. We've seen him win some very significant events on the PGA Tour. I think for me, is he doing enough tee to green to win this thing right now? I'm going to say no. I just think it's not quite there tee to green for Max in comparison to some of the guys that we've covered to this point?
I mean, we're here to educate as much as we are to entertain, right? If we get burned by Max Homa this week, it's a great story. It's wonderful for golf, and we'll move on. But you and I aren't going to regret not taking Jordan Spieth over Max Homa or Victor Hovland over Max Homa, right? No. I mean, at some point, we have to make educated guesses.
Yeah, you got to make a decision. Yeah, you got to find an angle, right? And that's the angle for me with Homa. And now we get down. This is where it gets interesting for me, because now we're starting to get down into the 40s, right? And how far are we going to go? And so the question becomes, should we stay on Hideki? I've been kind of with Hideki, riding him a little bit. Do we stay with Hideki? I think we're both out on Morikawa, not enough there around the greens. You want to talk about volatile Finau in the U.S. Opens? I mean, here's his last 5: miscut, T8, miscut, 5th. I mean, what are you going to get with Finau? A lot of people are gonna wrap their arms around Finau and say, this is the one. This is the one. Finau is going to get it done. And the next guy, Fleetwood. This is the one that Fleetwood finally. There's a lot of guys here, some sentimental favorites, I think. I think of that stretch, and DJ's in there. I skipped over DJ. DJ's in that 40 range. So where do we lean here? I think, to me, DJ is the biggest wild card here. The biggest unknown is Dustin Johnson. And what version of Dustin are we going to get? He looks a little trimmer to me. I saw some swings earlier in the week. He looks like he's feeling good. The question is, how's that flat stick feel in his hand? I mean, I think that's the big question, and I don't know the answer to that.
You mentioned something earlier that I always kind of think about. I heard this question one time, Sirius, your pod, somewhere, where they said, this was about 6 months ago, and they said, if everyone's playing their very, very best golf, who's the best golfer in the world?
Like, that was my pod. Yeah, because I always say 2 guys.
Right.
Rory and DJ.
Right.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
And that's probably why it strikes a chord in my brain right now. It's you said it, and I think to myself, those are the guys that when they get the engine fully going.
Yep.
I mean, what was that one FedEx Cup run that DJ went on? Scotty Scheffler shot 59, and he lost a tournament by a couple strokes to DJ.
Mm-hmm.
DJ shot 60 that day, and he had 50. He needed to birdie 2 more holes in the last 6 or something. He was like 10 under through 6 holes. It was ridiculous. DJ. So DJ, to me, I want to bring this up at some point, and that is the news of the world. Everything that we covered last week, and we still don't have any answers, and there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of pointed questions happening in this media center here. But now they're pointed at a different group of people. They're pointed at the PGA Tour, not LIV. I think the news of last week is very positive for the Brysons, the DJs, the Cam Smiths, the Brookses. And you might say some of those guys don't care. DJ and Brooks don't care. I think they kind of do care. I think we all want to be loved at some point in our life, right? And I don't know how much love Pauline is passing out, but I think that guys like DJ, who went under a ton of scrutiny for being the first big name to jump, he got hammered pretty good. And now he's not the type of guy that's going to turn around and say, I told you so. But if that was ever a weight on his shoulders, that's been lifted by the news of last week. If Cam Smith really wanted to go practice at TPC Sawgrass, at some point he could go back now. It seems as if he wants to be a part of that community, and he was shunned to a certain degree. Look at Bryson. Yeah. We're on Bryson 5.0, right? I mean, the protein shakes are gone, but if there's ever been a guy, you see him on YouTube. I don't know that there's a person that's more insecure on YouTube and wants to be accepted, right? Imagine, what's been lifted off of his brain. I think it really is going to open these guys up to go back to playing some championship golf. And they've proven they know how to prepare and get ready. So to me, it's very interesting. I think we could see something out of DJ. I'm not ready to bet him yet. I mean, if you gave me a nice layup question like DJ or JT, initials, which one, I'd go DJ all day. But there's a reason he's 40-1. And if that ship sails this week, then I'll be standing on the dock. It's okay.
How about DJ versus JR? Justin Rose. Yeah, you got to think about that one. I tell you what, Rose, it's damn. I'll give you a minute. It's really, really impressive what Rose has done since moving to Mark Blackburn. Mark's kind of the guy right now. A lot of his guys playing well. I talked to Mark for a while about some of the stuff that they were doing. They went back to, speaking of Marion, as we mentioned earlier, they went back to some of the things that he used to do in his swing, as I was understanding it from him, in that getting the left arm deeper, getting the shaft more on plane, and then from there, just being able to hit what they call body draws. Talk about that tomorrow on the pod too. That kind of an interesting concept, but really a look back to when his iron game was the best. If Justin Rose can do enough with the driver, I think Justin Rose can win this thing. We saw him hit it out of bounds last week. That cost him big. Yeah. And so he can't hit those foul balls like that. And so if he can keep, I believe this. I mean, Justin Rose has been very impressive this year, folks. Won the AT&T. He's won a U.S. Open before. His iron game is exceptional. I think his short game is good enough. I think he's putting good enough.
Short game's really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
So man, if Rose can keep it in front of him, I'm going to go there. I think I'm going to play Rose down in this. Now, look, I mean, the pod was mine because I've always said the guys, all systems go, Rory and DJ. Yeah. Must-watch TV, those two. Now, that was back when DJ was playing the PGA Tour, and I think kind of focused. Now, where's his head at, since going to live? So, but he looked a little trimmer to me. He looked, I mean, I haven't bet it yet either, but it's always there for me. I'm betting DJ over JT. I'm betting DJ over Fowler. I'm betting DJ over probably, I'm betting DJ certainly over Cam Young and Lowry and M. All those guys. I'll sprinkle some there on DJ in addition to what I've done with Rose.
Agree with all of those DJ overs. I would take Hideki over Rose.
You would? Hideki. Okay, so you're saying stay on Hideki because that's a question that's come across. Yeah. We've been touting Hideki, so you're saying let's stay on Hideki this week. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the ball striking is so sneaky good short game. Going to need it here. I think he's going to have a lot of support. Strong Asian fan base here, California.
Good point. Yep.
I think that that's going to fire him up a little bit. Obviously, tremendous ties between this place as far as comp courses go and Augusta National. Hideki won that Masters on Sunday and ran away with it because of his pitching and chipping game. He's got the power. He's got the long iron game for sure.
Oh, yeah. He can throw it up.
200-plus yards on approach. Go look at it. It's good. Right?
He can throw it up.
So in that, he's right around 50. I would take him over all those names we just mentioned. He's probably the bottom of my outright card.
All right.
At 50-1. And,
so
Hollywood Hideki for me makes sense.
So we're not going to go JT at 50. How about that? Boy, JT, his game is just, man. Oh, let me say that out loud again. Justin Thomas, 50-1. Wow.
He won Cameron a major a year ago. He won a major a year ago.
So we're not interested in Cameron Young at 50. Yeah, Lowry at 60. M 60. Burns 65. Wyndham Clark. What
Burns
a year.
Didn't even make the cut last week in Canada.
Yeah. So we're getting down. There's Adam Scott, Patrick Reed, Connors.
Reed catches my attention.
Strokes gained tee to green, Mito and Neiman, over a sample size. I mean, those two, they can strike it.
Yeah. Just for a point of clarity, don't compare Riviera to LACC, folks, in your research. They're not the same. I know they have the same original designer, George Thomas. They are much different golf courses. They have different grasses. So if you're thinking Joaquin because of what he did a couple of years ago at Riv, I wouldn't go there. I would stick with the other comps that you're hearing, for sure. Just want to interject that for the masses.
I sprinkle a little on Denny. I don't think he can win it, but I mean, I do think he can win it. I don't know if the driver's quite there, but I did sprinkle a little on Denny.
I love Denny for a lot of different reasons.
Let me just say this real quick. Like last week was interesting at Memorial. You had Denny positive 11.3, or not last week, 2 weekends ago at Memorial, positive 11.3. Had a chance to win, of course. And this course, look, it's going to be bouncing. There's going to be rough, so it's going to be, bigger version of Memorial. Everybody's kind of on Fleetwood. Of course, he finished second last week at RBC, but was kind of skewed positive 9.2 putting. So, those guys going to repeat that this week? Probably not. They're going to have to do a little bit more from a tee to green standpoint. I thought Denny's driver would be a little better as of late, just kind of the stuff that I've been looking at. He's just been, right around the norm, slightly maybe losing a stroke off the tee. Iron game, pretty good. Don't worry about his short game so much, and he's one of the best putters in the world. So he's gonna. I sprinkled a little on Denny. Let's hope that the driver can be positive, right? I think positive off the tee with Denny and Jay Rose. I think they have a chance for some odds as we get towards the end of the show, and you're looking for a play.
Yeah, I have a lot of uses for Denny this week. I'll just leave it at that. In play, head-to-heads, placements, everything, fantasy. And I'm sure he'll be popular in fantasy, so, maybe there's a leverage play there or not. But at the end of the day, all those other categories, prop bets, I think Denny will help you clean up this week and, boost your card.
We miss anybody?
He's playing well.
We miss anybody down the stretch there? I think we covered them.
Just keep an eye on Patrick Reed. I'll leave it at that.
All right.
The short game, the long iron play. This place is not your typical PGA Tour style golf. This is a thinking person's golf course. So, Patrick, we don't want to admit it, but Patrick Reed has a pretty high golf IQ. That guy gets his ball in the hole with what he's working with pretty darn well. Would you admit to that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Right.
You got the comp to Augusta. We know what he can do there.
The short game is, it's not with Smith and Spieth, but it's close. It's pretty close,
So you're so as we wrap this thing up, you're one guy. What this thing? You had your pick earlier in the show. The winner of the 132nd playing. Excuse me.
23rd.
Check that. Rewind it.
Yep.
Start over.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Hold on. Let's go back. Here we go. Ready? We're going back. Let's start over here. Here we go.
Take two. It's Hollywood. Take two.
The winner of the 123rd United States Open at LACC is. What do you got? What do you got? Cam Smith.
Cam Smith. Who do you have, Travis?
Go and shuffle. Got it. I'm doing it. Chalk. I'm sorry. Make the putters better. You'll get out of the bunkers. Naughty shuffle. That's it.
That'll be a sound bite for the ages when Smith pulls this thing off.
All right, Keith, you're the man. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Really appreciate your time.
Man, there's just nothing better than being on a Stripe show.
All right, there he is. Keith Stewart, read the line from LACC. Back tomorrow on the pod. Have a good day.